Telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
I know your name is Rita, 'cause your perfume is smelling sweet. Since when I saw you down on the floor. Guitar.
Well, he got through the first sit-down interview, but it seems like a resounding C or D minus. I don't know. It's certainly not an A or a B. I don't even know if it's a C. I thought there was meandering, and I thought the president of the United States seems to be degrading incredibly before our eyes. I've shared this with you guys before. First time I met Joe Biden was in the 1980s. So it's been a lot of decades, and I have seen him through the decades, often years apart. So it's kind of interesting. You've been able to sort of see the degradation. And tonight, I am sad to say that the president of the United States is a shell of a man that he used to be. There is no doubt. At one point, he used to be very spunky. He used to be very alert, very quippy. And clearly, he is having cognitive issues. There is no question about it. You can see it in his eyes. And you can certainly tell that he is having trouble forming his thoughts and having clarity. He's also very tired. Tonight, he seemed haggard in this interview. It ran for 22 minutes, and he seemed tired. A couple times, I was thinking, is he going to get through it without falling asleep? Remember, he admitted this week to a number of officials in the Democratic Party that he thought he might even fall asleep during the debate, that he was that tired. And then we heard the excuse that he was sick. And then tonight we heard this mumble jumble, different answers. And in fact, at one point, he even blamed it on Donald Trump interrupting him at the podium. Did you guys hear that? There was one moment when he was there and asked by Stephanopoulos, like, what happened? What went wrong? And he said, well, Trump was kind of interrupting me at one point. He was talking over me, and I thought our microphones were shut off. Give me a break. You are the president of the United States. You're dealing with enormous issues, and you know darn well the other person's going to try to speak over you. You're trying to speak over him, and you agreed to the terms of the debate. No wonder he agreed to the terms of the debate, because maybe he has problems when someone's talking to him at the same time he's speaking, because maybe his brain doesn't function that he can hear at the same time he's speaking. I'm being very serious. There is something seriously wrong that he actually thought that that's part of the problem with what happened in the debate. It explains now some of the terms that he and his campaign set up for the debate that they wanted in June. And boy, he performed dismally and pathetically. And I didn't hear him tonight saying, I'm ready to go out to a press conference to the world and answer every single question. I didn't hear that. And I also didn't hear him say, I'm ready to debate Donald Trump tomorrow. Let's just do it. Because Donald Trump is saying, let's do it, Joe. And Joe Biden will only do it micromanaged, planned. And even when it's that, he still is blaming everybody. He says, oh, it's but my fault. But if he was so sick, remember, like he still kind of claims like he is, why did he go to the Waffle House after the debate and shake everybody's hand? Isn't that an interesting question? If I had a bad cold, I wouldn't be out there going into the public. If I felt so lousy that I was having trouble thinking coherently through a debate, guess what? I wouldn't be at a Waffle House shaking hands with strangers and coughing and sniffling. And then he claims that he had medical tests the next day, no cognitive tests. But if he was so sick that he was worried about a virus, why is he going and infecting everybody at a Waffle House at 1 or 2 in the morning? None of this makes sense, and I do not trust the answers he's telling us, and I don't trust the answers coming from the White House. Do you? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show on this very, very busy Friday night. Well, here's a little bit of Joe Biden, the president, speaking with George Stephanopoulos just a little bit ago. And Stephanopoulos asking, remember the question that Nancy Pelosi asked, Is this an episode? Is this reoccurring? What are we dealing with here that we saw at the debate? And listen to this back and forth.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night. But your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
So he thought maybe he has COVID, maybe he has a virus, maybe he has a bad cold, that he got tests afterwards, but he's going to the Waffle House shaking hands. And then remember, he goes to the rally too, where he's shaking hands. How is that? What, his politics matter more than giving somebody COVID? I mean, this is just this. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And listen to this moment, because this to me is probably the most troubling part of the entire interview that we all just heard. Here he is, and he's asked a little bit more about the debate, what went wrong. And just like, if you're on a football team and you have a bad pass, your coach is going to say, hey, go ahead and watch the game again because you can see how you missed it. Let's see how you did. Don't you want to learn from your experience? It's all on tape. Here it is. Take a look. Darn well, this was such an enormous night. And he's asked, did you watch the debate after the bungle, after the disaster? And listen to what he said.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look. The whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
I don't think I did watch the debate. I'm sorry. If you watch the debate, you would hope you would know if you watch the debate. And to me, either one of those answers are really deeply, deeply troubling. If you have a president of the United States in probably, again, the most important position in the entire world, and he can't even remember if he watched the debate, and it's not like a debate from 30 years ago where you could say, well, I can't remember if I watched that one. This is the one that just happened recently that looks like it's spelling the end of your presidency. If you watch the debate, if you have all your marbles together. And the fact that he does not know, I think that was a genuine answer. Some people maybe think he was trying to be political and he didn't want to say, I watched the debate. Why wouldn't he say he watched the debate? Because he's already come out and said that it was a bad night, that he didn't do well. So wouldn't you care enough to watch the debate to see what you did and what you didn't do and you're glassy eyed and all the things that people around the world saw? Wouldn't you think you would look at that? It defies logic that he wouldn't look at the debate. And yet he actually said with a straight face and sort of his meandering, glassy-eyed look to George Stephanopoulos in an interview that this president is hoping is going to turn around and salvage his presidency, that I don't think, in other words, I can't remember if I watched the debate. It was only about a week ago, and you cannot remember if you watched a tape of the debate? That answer alone says to me he is not qualified to be commander-in-chief. You want to put that guy in a room with Putin, with a room with Xi? You want to put him dealing with Israel and Hamas? And he can't remember if he watched a debate last week? That is darn right frightening. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Jacqueline in Brooklyn. Jacqueline, could you believe that part right there? I cannot recall, basically. I don't remember. I don't think I watched the debate. That is stunning. Jacqueline.
That was one of the first things that he said. And Rita, in answer to your question, all the questions that you rattled off before that you were waiting for Joe Biden to give answers to, the reason you didn't get any of those answers is because this was basically a 9-minute infomercial. Joe Biden spoke for collectively, not continuously, collectively, less than 500 seconds. And when he did speak, his expressions on his face, as you say, he still looked slow. He was slow. He still looked confused and lost. He all of a sudden now he doesn't believe any of the polling data. He says, polling data can be misrepresented. He kept saying he had a bad night. He had a cold. A doctor said he was exhausted. He kept bashing President Trump. But
then he went to the Waffle House. How do you like that, Jacqueline? How do you explain he was worried maybe he had COVID, maybe he had a virus, that he was so sick? So if you think you have COVID, maybe you shouldn't be standing next to President Donald Trump. If you think you have COVID, maybe you shouldn't be going to a Waffle House and shaking hands with just innocent people who are sitting there at a restaurant trying to have a nice time. Maybe you shouldn't be at a rally the next day shaking hands with everybody. If he was so sick that he's trying to blame it, his physical health and a virus and COVID, those are infectious. What was he doing out at the Waffle House?
Well, his wife, Jill, the school teacher that she is, probably promised him, Joe, if you answer all the questions, we'll take you to Waffle House. So she had to come through on her promise. Remember, she congratulated him. Joe, you did a great job. You answered all the questions. I'm being derogatory and I'm being facetious.
No, you are. But you know what? You're hitting a great point. I wouldn't be surprised because the way she said it, just like you said, Jacqueline, it was so patronizing. It was like, here's a good little boy. It's like how you talk to like a 6-year-old saying, oh, Johnny, you did such a good job. Let's go out here and let's go have ice cream. Let's go do this. I mean, it's frightening. And nothing tonight, Jacqueline, in my mind, changed anything of the trajectory for this president. If anything, as an American, I am more scared about that guy being in the Oval Office. Forget, beyond 2024. I'm worried about the next few months. If I'm a bad actor in the world, and I mean, one of the Axis of Evil or any of those guys, I'm laughing to the bank. I'm going, that guy can't even remember if he had a debate, if he watched a debate. You know what? Boy, we can push anything over the U.S. while that guy's in power. And that saddens me. Your thoughts, Jacqueline?
Not only that, Rita, Stephanopoulos, in my opinion, put the final nail in Joe Biden's coffin when he asked for his opinion, Jonathan Karl's opinion, and then followed up with Martha Raddatz and Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. They all made the statement that this interview isn't going to allay anyone's concerns about Joe Biden's fitness for the presidency. He has lost the media, which has only supported him and propped him up for the past 4 years now, and they've turned on him, and they're ready and waiting to support his replacement as soon as that's disclosed to the public. I was wrong about it being announced today, but it's going to happen next week.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen incredibly soon. I agree with you, Jacqueline, whether Joe Biden wants it or not. We'll continue with your calls, everybody, after the break here on The Rita Cosby Show.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
This is Greg Kelly for Priority Gold. What does it mean to be America's precious metals dealer? It means that you're in touch with the hearts and minds of those who love this country, value our freedom, and want to protect the future. Priority Gold is that precious metals dealer. They've helped thousands of Americans back their retirement with solid gold and silver. Call Priority Gold at 888-506-6439. Receive free shipping, free storage, a free investment guide, and one of the best purchase experiences in the industry. Call now or go to PriorityGold.com.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, everybody is watching, and even before the interview tonight, earlier tonight on Katz and Cosby, John Catsimatidis and I talked with Anthony Scaramucci. Of course, he is the founder of Skybridge Capital, and this is what he said. This is even before the interview tonight. Listen to this. Anthony, what do you think is going to happen with Joe Biden? What is your suggestion and your thoughts? Because, of course, you're an important player in a lot of this.
Well, you know, the president obviously is not doing well, and so we all have to be honest about that. And I had the opportunity to see him last Saturday out in East Hampton. He looked a little bit better than he did the prior Thursday when he had the failing debate performance. But Rita and John, you know, we have to be honest about these things and evaluate these things. I don't think he can make it to the election. And we're just being brutally honest. And I don't think he can make the next 4 years. And so,
can he make Mooch? Can he make the next 7 months?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he can make it until the election. So no, I don't think he makes the next 7 months, and I don't think he makes the next 4 years. And I think it's political malpractice at this point to suggest otherwise. But I think you guys know this because you're talking to a lot of people. It's the entire Democratic Party versus three people. It's President Biden, his son Hunter, and the First Lady Jill Biden. They're adamant and they're digging their heels in. But you may have seen him last night. He's saying ho, ho, ho at the Independence Day rally. So to me, you know, I think it's very unfair to the American people. Whether they like Donald Trump or dislike Donald Trump, the Democrats should put an opponent up that can put sentences together and has some neural flexibility off of a teleprompter.
Wow. That again from Anthony Scaramucci. And everybody, when we come back, you have to hear this blockbuster interview. I wanted to share it with all of you. It was done by my WABC radio colleague, Greg Kelly, and he spoke to Jill Biden's ex-husband, Bill Stevenson, who shares some stunning details of the way that he says Joe Biden was conniving, was deceitful, and did a whole bunch of things. This was decades ago when he was senator. Forget when he's president now. You have to hear this one.
Rita Cosby is on.
And everybody, here is the blockbuster interview that my WABC radio colleague Greg Kelly did with Jill Biden's ex-husband. Wait till you hear this one.
Well, folks, he's back. One of our favorite guests, Bill Stevenson. He was married to Jill Biden for a number of years back in the 1970s. Yeah, it's true. Bill Stevenson, welcome back. How are you, pal?
Greg, I'm doing good. How are you today? Beautiful weather, huh?
It is nice. Are you in Delaware right now?
Yes, I am, sir. I'm in Delaware. I'm actually in my office, and I am about a mile and a half from the Biden house.
Wow. It's a tiny state, that Delaware. How many counties?
3 counties. And it's funny you mention that because Joe Biden lost the southern county of Sussex, tied in the center county of Kent, and won in the county where Wilmington, Delaware is, where I live. But he only won 54% of the vote in his home state. That's pretty funny, right?
That is interesting. I didn't realize that. All right, look, I guess let me cover this real quick. You were young. You were living, you were living the life. You were in your early 20s. You met Jill. You fell in love. You got married. Everything was fine. She's going to school. You're doing your business. And you start volunteering for Joe Biden. You start hanging out with him, raising money for him. He wins the election. He loses his wife and 2 children, but he's got his other kids. At some point after he becomes a United States senator, it is believed that your wife started seeing Joe Biden romantically. Can you tell me how you found out about that truth, how you learned that she was now seeing Joe Biden?
It's an easy story, Greg. First of all, we were married for very close to 5 years. Things were going good. My business had taken off. We were young. She was 18. I had just turned 21 when we met in the summer of 1969 in Ocean City, New Jersey. And she came up and asked a question about my car. Next thing I know, 6 months later, we're married. And, it was a pretty strong and very successful marriage. And I maybe was working too hard. Who knows? But I have no regrets about that. The first warning came when one of her great friends at school came up to me and said, I think that Jill and Joe Biden are getting a little too close. And I thought, that's a little crazy. Never saw that coming before. But the real clincher was I had just bought her a brand new 1974 Corvette for her birthday in June. She loved this car, and she drove it everywhere. And then I guess it was the second week we figured out of September, it was Wednesday, that she said she was going to class in Wilmington, Delaware, Greg. And on Saturday morning, a person walks into my business and talks to my associates, my employees, and they said that the Corvette on Wednesday night backed into his car in Wilmington, Delaware. And so I went down to talk to the gentleman. He looked honest. He was about 50, 55 years old, typical DuPont type employee in Wilmington, Delaware. And he took me out front of my business and he showed that he had this big Buick Electra and that the back bumper had been pushed in where it actually did damage to the paint. And we're talking and I'm thinking, wow, Jill's a pretty good driver. I can't believe she did this. And I'm talking to him, and I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, he said he was coming back to pay for the damage. And I stopped and I said, hey, he goes, oh, Jill wasn't driving. Senator Biden was driving the car and backed it into my car. He said he would come back in a few days and pay. Greg, I knew. And that was it. That's how I found out.
Wow. So you later got divorced. And one of the things that, quite frankly, I always liked about you, because I first heard this story in 2020, and you told the story like you just did. And it was interesting. You told it in a way, it was like we all knew the truth, but you kind of you didn't disparage your ex-wife, and you acknowledged, I don't know, you were young and things happen. You really have no bitterness toward her, correct?
I have no bitterness toward her. I don't blame her for anything. Many people have said, and I agreed, we were young. These things happen. And I have no bitterness toward her whatsoever. As I have thought it out, though, and as I saw her on the stage the other night scream, what does Trump do? He's a liar. Greg, that has changed everything. I just don't recognize that young lady up there as being my former wife. It's sort of like opened up my mind a little bit that, maybe she is a little bit of a driving force with what's going on now.
So what do you think about this? Now, you know that Joe Biden's a liar. We all know it. We've seen him lie like crazy over the years. He really did make your life hell. in Delaware. I mean, literally, correct?
Correct. What basically I think happened was I had made a lot of money early. When I met Jill, I was working for like $2.50, just like everybody else at a beach resort town of Ocean City. I was having a great life. And I met her. Listen, she's a special person. She was a very good-looking woman. She caught my heart. Yes, the divorce broke my heart, but I got over it. Then, all of a sudden, I realized that we're offering her close to $1 million for 5 years of marriage. She's already on her way to her master's and doctorate degree, and they take me to divorce court, public divorce court. At the last minute, she fires her lawyers and hires Joe Biden's former law partner. It was crazy, Greg.
So, but you came out ahead in the end. I think the judge realized you were being screwed. So the judge accounted for all the stuff you had given Jill, and you actually got a pretty decent deal out of it. You embarrassed Joe Biden. The judge humiliated Joe Biden because Joe came in, got involved, screwed everything up. And from that point on, we think he was out to get you. And I mean, I find this the most compelling case. In April of 1982, you were indicted for failing to pay your employees, I think, federal withholding tax, FICA. You had $8,000 to distribute to the employees quarterly, on a quarterly basis. It was April 8th when they indicted you for not paying for the first quarter of 1982. 8 days late with $8,000. You were 8 days late, and they indicted you and your brother, hauled you into federal court.
Me and my brother.
They arrested you guys. They arrested you.
They came down and literally put handcuffs on us for $8,000. But let me tell you something I've never shared with you. At that point in 1982, we were coming up on our 10th anniversary. The bar had already grossed. This is not just some little local corner bar, Greg. This bar in its lifetime grossed over $120 million. And in the first 10 years, I had already grossed $30 million, and we had already paid $6 million in taxes. So this was late by 8 days, and we knew at that point, and everybody knew at that point, that this was political and that my former friend who I backed and my U.S. senator was coming after me. In other words, just like he's doing now, the former President Trump, he literally sicked the Department of Justice on me, Greg.
It's unbelievable. And for a pittance and for nothing. The
check was in the mail.
It is amazing.
That's what's so ridiculous. I mean, everybody around here, you know, it's so funny. The News Journal puts it on like, oh, my God, Bill Stevenson is late on $8,000 worth of taxes. And I'm going, what? I read the headlines, and it actually made me laugh out loud before it was even laugh out loud was funny.
You know, and the News Journal, speaking of, I wonder if they're going to rise to the occasion that they have hidden from. They know Joe Biden, but I guess they're intimidated, that whole truth to power crap, because you and I have been talking for, I don't know, almost a year, and we have documented your story. We told it. It's been picked up by the international press. And for some reason, the only newspaper in Delaware doesn't want to talk about it. And I think, just guessing here, it's a pretty interesting and, quite frankly, pretty juicy story as far as Delaware goes, right?
You said something in the first sentence of this conversation. Delaware is a very small state. Delaware is a very small state. Everybody knows what everybody's doing anyway, regardless of the News Journal, but they are the only game in town. They are the only major paper. I have been in that paper hundreds of times prior to him becoming president. The minute I spoke out that I wasn't real happy with him becoming president, and I told the story that they're of the accident, and they have been so upset that I am positive that somebody had to contact the News Journal and say, if you write anything about Bill Stevenson, we're not going to contribute any stories of the president to your paper. That had to happen, Greg, because it's been crickets. No calls, no nothing.
Well, it's amazing.
Like I wasn't still here.
Well, but the whole world has reacted except for them, and that's very telling. And I don't know what they're afraid of. You know, you don't really need any special access to this White House. You can see it. You can see it right in front of your face. We all know what's going on. We all know that Joe Biden's failing. We all know that he's a liar. And so, all right, back to Jill. My wife was saying that it's her sense that she wants to stay in that White House in part because the idea of going back to Delaware with Joe, I mean, let's face it, he's gone mentally. She's got, you know, she's like 70, whatever. I mean, she's still got it going on in a way. I mean, she does not want to spend time with him at that house in Delaware. I don't think she's into him. That's just my read on it. I could be wrong.
I saw a little clip on your show the other night when she was on stage and he started telling that ridiculous John Wayne story about a statement that was in a movie. And we all know that the statement wasn't in the movie. And the tragic thing is, on top of everything else, he keeps telling a story that they have probably said. It is not true, Joe. Stop telling it. I have never seen the look of horror on Jill's face ever than that little video you played the other night on Newsmax. Greg, I think she's in shock. I mentioned in the very beginning, I don't even recognize this young lady anymore. She has stepped in. I saw the picture that you had posted that she was sitting at the president's desk, and that was like a big deal. And you're right. I believe that she is so afraid that he's not going to be available to pardon Hunter, if in fact he will. And I just think she does not want to move out of that White House. They mentioned that Trump might not leave the White House. I'm afraid they might have a problem getting Jill out of there.
Wow. Well, Bill, you've made quite a life for yourself, and you came out on top. You came through all the hard times. You've got a thriving business, beautiful wife. Everything's great. What are your final thoughts right now? What do you want to say?
Well, my final thoughts are, why is she blaming former President Trump for all of the problems that Joe and she have created with their programs? They have, it's not that I'm upset with her personally. Yes, I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden. He lied. He set me up. And yeah, we'll get that straight down the road with my little book coming out that tells the story. But you have backed me 100%, and I appreciate you letting me tell my story to everybody. It has really helped. I think Jill has got to come to reality that this man is struggling, that it's not fair. I've heard the word elder abuse often and referring to her. I don't know what to do other than just speak out, let everybody know how I feel about this. But somehow, for the better of this country, I think that President Biden has to step aside. And I hope that Jill steps aside with him.
And in November, you're voting for?
President Trump, 100%, baby.
Bill,
I love the guy. Listen, I love the guy's politics. I've loved him as a businessman for years. He is the real deal, and I just wish that people understood him a little bit better, because he is going to be so good for this country the next 4 years. I pray that he is president of the United States, and I appreciate you, Greg.
Oh, thank you, Bill. And you guys have an amazing connection, an amazing connection, both hauled into court on fake crap because of Joe Biden, you and Donald Trump. It's quite a connection. Very interesting, very unique. Bill?
I think God brought this little connection into my life when I realized, like a couple years ago, that Joe Biden is doing the exact same thing with the Federal Department of Justice. I mean, I hate to brag, but I'm a pretty popular guy down here in Delaware. I'm well known. I was named one of the 50 most influential people in Delaware over the last 50 years. With him, by the way, he was one of the other 50. And that's an honor that I cherish. So it's not like I'm not well known or not respected, but he used the Department of Justice on me 40 years ago, the exact same MO that he's using on former President Trump now. And as much as I can speak out, I'm going to in the next 4 months, because the people have to know what's going on. It happened before. It's happening now, Greg.
Bill Stevenson, thank you. You are a winner. We look forward to your book. We'll have you back when it comes out. And Bill Stevenson, thanks for being with us.
Wow. Greg Kelly and Bill Stevenson, Jill Biden's ex-husband. Very revealing. We're going to take your calls when we come back on that 1-800-848-9222. And now to our Support Our Heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a powerful story from Sacramento, California, where thousands of people lined the streets for the 30th annual 4th of July parade there this week. And for the first time, there was a new participant, World War II veteran Ken Marr, who is of Asian American descent. He is a Chinese American. He is now 99 years old. He was drafted in 1943. And also, just this past month, that veteran traveled to Normandy, France, for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Of course, I was so honored to be there, too. He said when he got off the bus there, everybody saluted him. And he said they all appreciated it. It was so awesome. How beautiful to see him recognized there in France and also on the streets of Sacramento. And everybody, remember to help America to never, ever forget. Donate just $11 a month to the great Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Check them out at T2T.org, T2T.org.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show. It's The Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go right to your calls. Everybody, 1-800-848-9222. Mimi in New Hyde. Mimi, your thoughts, New Hyde Park, your reaction to, wow, that blockbuster interview with Greg Kelly and Jill Biden's ex-husband.
That's why I called you. Joe Biden gets his way by ruining his target, by lying and using the law. And Jill does the same thing. She wanted 100% of the House after she used Biden's lawyers, and she didn't get it. And,
right. And then they go after Bill.
Yes, and his brother went to jail for Bill, and he never came back. He went to California. That was his first interview. And I want to just say that Stormer, there's going to be a NATO meeting next week with the new prime minister. What is Joe going to do?
Yeah, no, you're right, Mimi, because next week he claims he's going to have some mini press conference. Let's see it, because after tonight, I'm not so sure it'll be any sort of a press conference whatsoever. But great points, because I do think that interview with Greg was very telling with Bill Stevenson and Joe Biden's character. Let's go real quick to Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, Rita, thanks for taking my call. I was just saying in regards to Joe Biden, relenting and giving up his candidacy. I wish he wouldn't, because since the Republican leadership to have the guts to impugn the Democratic Party platform, now the election is going to be much more difficult when they bring in somebody new.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, first of all, I think a lot of people are disenchanted completely with Joe Biden. But it is frightening to know, how's he going to get through the next few months, up until Election Day even.
Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and 401k as the stock market braces for impact. I'm Larry Kudlow, and I urge you to fortify your savings with physical gold with my friends at Priority Gold. To learn how gold and silver can help diversify your savings, please call 1-800-405-GOLD or just visit PriorityGold.com to get a free gold information guide. That's 1-800-405-GOLD.